When I first met Clara, I thought she was the most unbearable person I'd ever met. She was loud, sarcastic, and obsessed with extreme sports, skydiving, bungee jumping, climbing things that weren't meant to be climbed. I, on the other hand, was an introvert who loved books, chess, and quiet afternoons with tea and rain tapping on the window. We met at my cousin's birthday party, a noisy outdoor barbecue where the music was too loud and people too cheerful. She was friends with my cousin's girlfriend and showed up wearing hiking boots and a bright yellow jacket, her hair in a messy braid. I was in the corner trying to look invisible when she suddenly dropped into the seat next to me, holding a beer and smiling like she'd known me forever. "You look like you're having the time of your life," she said, voice full of sarcasm. I smirked and said I preferred peace and quiet. "Peace and quiet is overrated," she laughed. "You don't live enough if you're not doing something that scares you." That single sentence stuck with me for days. I couldn't decide whether I hated her confidence or secretly admired it. A week later, she texted me. I didn't even know she had my number. Apparently, she got it from my cousin. Her message said, "You need to learn how to live a little. Meet me at the park at noon on Saturday. Don't be late." Against every instinct screaming to stay home, I went. She was there waiting with 2 bikes. I hadn't ridden one since I was a teenager, and she laughed so hard when I nearly fell off that I almost walked away. But then she smiled, really smiled, and something inside me shifted. We spent that day riding through trails, talking about everything and nothing. She made me laugh in a way I hadn't in years. When the sun began to set, she looked at me and said softly, "See, the world's not so bad when you actually look at it." Our worlds collided from that moment. She started inviting me to things that terrified me: rock climbing, kayaking, spontaneous road trips. I said no to most, but sometimes I said yes, and every time, I saw something new in her. Beneath her wild energy was a warmth I couldn't ignore. She was fearless, but not because she lacked fear, she just refused to let it win. One night, after a long hike that nearly killed me, we sat on a hill overlooking the city lights. She pulled a flask from her pocket, took a sip, and passed it to me. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," she said. I hesitated, then admitted I'd once dreamed of being a writer but gave it up because I thought no one would care. She looked at me and said, "You should write again. The world needs more people who feel deeply." I didn't realize how much that would change me. Over the next few months, we became inseparable. I started writing again, stories, poems inspired by her laughter and the way she made life seem bigger. She began spending quieter evenings with me too, curled up on my couch watching old movies, pretending not to fall asleep halfway through. It was like we met in the middle. She taught me to live, and I taught her to slow down. Our differences became the glue that held us together. But it wasn't always easy. Her hunger for excitement sometimes clashed with my need for calm. Once, she told me she was going skydiving again, and I panicked. "Why do you have to keep risking your life?" I shouted. "Can't you stay still for once?" She looked hurt and said, "Because standing still feels like dying to me." That night we didn't speak. But the next morning, she showed up at my door holding 2 parachute passes and said, "If you can't beat me, join me." I've never been more terrified, but when I jumped from that plane holding her hand, fear turned into something else, pure, dizzying joy. And when we landed, she kissed me and whispered, "See, you're alive." From then on, I stopped trying to fit her into my world and started letting her show me hers. We traveled to places I never thought I'd see. We argued, laughed, got lost, found new paths, literally and figuratively. Every night, no matter how far we went, she'd curl up next to me, and I'd think, this chaos is the best thing that ever happened to me. A year later, she got an offer to join an international research expedition, 6 months abroad studying marine ecosystems. I was proud but terrified. What if you meet someone who actually loves the ocean as much as you? I joked. She cupped my face and said, "There's no one like you. You're my calm in the storm." The first few weeks were fine, video calls, messages, digital postcards. But as time passed, the calls got shorter, the messages fewer. I told myself she was just busy, but a voice inside whispered something was changing. When she came back, she was different, quieter, distracted. One night, I asked what was wrong, and she broke down crying. She told me she'd met someone during the expedition, a photographer who shared her love for danger and the sea. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said. "But I don't know what to do." My chest tightened so much I could barely breathe. I wanted to hate her, but all I could do was hold her as she cried. We decided to take time apart. Weeks turned to months. I buried myself in writing, pouring every ounce of pain onto the page. My stories became raw, real. People started reading them online, sending messages about how deeply they connected. Then, one evening, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Clara. Inside was a photo of the hill where we'd once watched the city lights, and on the back, she'd written, "You were right, sometimes slowing down is the bravest thing we can do. I miss you." We met again at that hill a week later. She looked the same yet different, like she'd lived a lifetime in months. We talked for hours, no anger, no blame. She told me she'd ended things with the photographer, realizing thrill wasn't the same as love. I told her I'd been published, that her voice was still the one echoing in my head every time I wrote. When the sun dipped below the horizon, she reached for my hand and said, "Maybe we don't have to be opposites anymore. Maybe we just fit differently now." From that day, we didn't try to be what we were before, we started new. She still chased adventures but now took her camera instead of jumping off cliffs. I still wrote quietly, but now my stories had life. We built a balance, fragile but beautiful. Years later, when people asked how we met, I'd laugh and say, "She nearly killed me with a bicycle." But the truth was, she saved me, from myself, from fear, from the smallness I'd built around my world. Looking back, I think love isn't about finding someone who shares your interests. It's about finding someone who challenges your limits, who shakes you awake and says, "There's more." She was my more. And even now, when I sit by that same hill and watch the lights flicker, I can still hear her laugh carried by the wind, reminding me that sometimes the most unexpected people teach us how to live.